The concept of dissatisfaction toward the entire world. Notion of dissatisfaction toward the entire world. If one thinks about the world, its sense pleasures, sweet tastes, chariots, fine garments, warm rooms, gardens, houses and all kinds of pleasant things, one has a notion of contentment. If one thinks of the misfortune and misdeeds of the world, the mind has a notion of dislike. What are the ills of the world? The ills of the world are of two types. 1. Beings. Lands. 1. Evils and wickedness of beings. A. Beings have 8 kinds of evils and torments. 1. Birth. 2. Old age. 3. Sickness. 4. Death. 5. Being separated from what one loves. 6. Gaining what one does not love. 7. Not getting what one wants. 8. In short, the 5 aggregates of attachment or suffering. B. As for the wickedness of beings, out of excessive lust, they do not differentiate between beauty and ugliness. They do not follow the teachings of their parents and teachers. They have no shame or modesty and are not different from the animals. Out of excessive hatred, they do not differentiate between the light and the heavy. Enraged by the poison of anger, they go so far as to refuse the Buddha's word. They do not want to hear the dharma. They are not afraid of the bad destinies. They inflict violent beatings. They do not care about others' sufferings, and entering into the great shadows, they see nothing more. Out of excessive ignorance, they do not find the means of realizing what they are looking for. They do not understand the causes of things, as if they were trying to get milk from a horn. Enveloped by ignorance, even if they are in the light of the sun, they will never see anything. Out of excessive greed, their house is like a tomb which nobody comes near. Out of excessive pride and haughtiness, they do not honor the saints and do not venerate their parents. Careless, they ruin themselves and have no honesty. Out of excessive wrong views, they do not believe in the present existence or in the future existence. They do not believe in sin or merit, and it is impossible to live with them. All these afflictions abounding in them, these wretched people have no uprightness. Their sins are numerous. They commit the 5 heinous crimes of immediate retribution. Sometimes they kill their father and mother. Sometimes they wound the saints. Sometimes they demand special honors. They slander faithful and celibate people, and they are an offense to their kinsmen. Furthermore, of the beings inhabiting the world, honest people are rare and evil people are numerous. It may be that people of good conduct are poor, lowly and ugly, and it may be that rich good-looking people are of bad conduct. It may be that those who love to give are poor and without resources, and it may be that rich, fortunate people are miserly, greedy and unwilling to give. If people see a thoughtful man silent and not speaking, they say that he is proud, haughty and does not want to serve. If they see an obliging man, benevolent and charitable, they say he is deceitful and a toady. If they see an eloquent orator, they accuse him of being dependent on inadequate knowledge and consider him to be proud. If they see a simple, straightforward, honest man, they all join up to deceive him, subjugate him, direct him and tyrannize him. If they see an easy, gentle man, they join up to despise him, trample him underfoot and treat him impolitely. If they see a man observing pure morality, they accuse him of hypocritical behavior, scorn him and do not respect him. Such people are perverts and unlovable. 2. Wretchedness of lands. Wretchedness of lands. All lands are filled with calamities and disadvantages. Heat and cold, hunger and thirst, sickness, epidemics, malaria, suffering, old age, sickness, death, fears. There is no country free of them. Anywhere you go, all these evils follow you, and there is no place where you can avoid them. Although there are wealthy, peaceful lands, many are tormented by the defilements and do not deserve the name of happy lands. All involve the 2 kinds of suffering, bodily suffering and mental suffering. No land is free of them. Thus it is said, there are lands that are too cold, there are lands that are too hot. There are lands without safety and protection, there are lands where the miseries abound. There are lands perpetually in famine, there are lands where sicknesses are abundant, there are lands where merit is not cultivated. Thus there is no happy place. As beings and lands have all these troubles, it is said that there is no happiness in the world. The ills of the desire realm are such as we have spoken of. But when one dies in the two higher realms, Rupa and Arupya Dhatu, and falls back down here, one suffers even greater humiliation than in this lower world. Thus, when one falls from a very high place, one is smashed to pieces and crushed. Question. What are the differences between anidya, dukkha and anatma samshna on the one hand, in sarvaloke nabarati samshna on the other hand, and why speak of them separately? Answer. There are two kinds of consideration. I. A general consideration. E. A specific consideration. The first three concepts are of the general order, whereas the concept of the world is of specific order. Furthermore, there are two kinds of consideration. I. Consideration about things, and E. Consideration about beings. The first three concepts are a consideration consisting of disapproval of all things, whereas here, the concept of the world is considering the wickedness and the troubles of beings. It is not the same. Furthermore, the first three notions are the pure path, whereas the concept of the world belongs to the impure path. Finally, the first three notions are of the path of seeing the truth, whereas the concept of the world is of the path of meditation. Thus there are many differences. The concept of dissatisfaction in regard to the entire world is included in all the levels and bears upon the dharmas of the threefold world. V. The concepts of death and impurity. On the concept of death, see what has been said above about Marananu Smrti. On the concept of impurity, see what has been said above about Kaya Smrtyupasthana. X. The concepts of renunciation, detachment and cessation. The concepts of renunciation, detachment and cessation have the characteristics of nirvana as object. Because the latter cuts through the fetters, there is the notion of renunciation. Because it renounces the fetters, there is the notion of detachment. Because it suppresses the fetters, there is the notion of cessation. Question. If that is so, one single notion would suffice. Why then mention three? Answer. It is again a matter of one and the same thing spoken of in three different ways, as was the case above, where it was said, that which is impermanent is suffering, and that which is suffering is impermanent. It is the same here, where the wickedness and the miseries of the entire world are so heavy that they are condemned in three ways. When a huge tree is being cut down, it is impossible to cut it down using just one saw. Since nirvana is an excellent dharma not yet attained previously, it is praised in diverse ways. Hence the notions of renunciation, detachment and cessation. Furthermore, as nirvana cuts through the three poisons, it is called abandonment. As it abandons desire, it is called detachment, and as it suppresses all suffering to the point that it no longer arises, it is called cessation. Furthermore, during the preparatory path consisting of heat, summits, patience and the supreme worldly dharmas, the yogin who has the vision of the correct knowledge moves away from the defilements. That is the notion of detachment. Obtaining the pure path, he cuts the fetters. That is the notion of renunciation. When he enters into nirvana, he suppresses the five aggregates of attachment that will be continued no longer. That is the notion of cessation. The notion of renunciation is nirvana with residue. The notion of cessation is nirvana without residue. The notion of detachment is the means, the door to both nirvanas. These three concepts, sometimes impure and sometimes pure, are included in all the stages. End chapter 37.